No, it's not necessarily. Even I'm going back to my own childhood. I really became fond of books because I was a lonely child. I didn't have much in the way of. I lost my father when I was very young, and my mother wasn't into books. So it was just something I discovered on my own. So and I think a lot of children do, perhaps on their own, and the more maybe not reclusive, but children who are reflective would take to reading quicker than others. The more sensitive maybe, the inward looking, because it depends again on the type of book you like. For some it would be an escape if they're reading, adventure books like that. And others might be would like books for knowledge, and go into specific genres of books. And of course, I guess if you're reading for pure pleasure, that's the best thing. Well, at an early age, very young, attractive picture books will always, I think, will interest a child. Every kid likes a good story. I mean, so many children will pester their parents or grandparents, preferably, at night and say, "Tell us a story, kahani sunao," and demand it. So why not just read them a story, which it'll be simple and easy to follow, and they would just get into the habit and they'll start demanding it every night too. Perhaps by watching the child's progress at school or schoolwork, and if also reading the child's. In my case, it was the teacher really who encouraged me. Looking back, I was lucky that I did have a couple of good teachers who realized that I could write well and encouraged me. Not all. It is an uphill task because on the other hand, my headmaster wasn't all that encouraging. The year I left school, he said, "So you want to be a writer, Bond? Remember that your best friend is a waste paper basket." And in a way, he was right, because you must learn to also to throw away the rubbish. But you do need, I think, just encouragement, some appreciation. So if not a parent, then a teacher. Because as I said, my mother would much rather have I gone into the army. And so it was purely up to me as an individual. In the 60s, 70s, writing in India, you see, we didn't have publishing here much, except for school books and textbooks. Publishing didn't come of age until a few years back, and it's certainly doing much better now than it did then. You see, as a schoolboy, I was good at essay writing, and by the time I finished school, I had decided I would be a writer. Yeah, so I was fond of books. Basically, it was that. I was a bookworm. I loved reading. My last 2 years at school, I was lucky. They put me in charge of the library, and I had the keys of the library, so I could escape. And sometimes when others were having to, do PT or horrible things like that, I would sort of take off and hide in the library and read. And so I must have gone through. It was quite a large library even then. I think I read most of the books in it. So you want to emulate your favorite authors in a way. You can't write like them, but you would like to also be an author. And by the time I finished school, I was, pretty well. I started bombarding newspapers and magazines with articles and stories and whatever they would take. A lot of them came back. And the best, I'm going back now to the 1950s. I mean, the most you got was 50 rupees for a short story. There was a little magazine in Chennai called My Magazine of India. I used to send them all my rejects. What I couldn't get published elsewhere would go to My Magazine. And they would send me 5 rupee money orders. Now, 5 rupees in those days was, even then it wasn't much, but you could see three movies with it. And one day the money order came back to me for 2 rupees, 8 annas. So I wrote a very fierce letter, complaining about this, reducing my rate of payment. And they wrote an apology. I said, no, sir, we haven't cut your rates. We've deducted 1 year's subscription to the magazine. So My Magazine is long gone now, and so have many others. But that was an era when we didn't have book publishers in India, but we had a lot of magazines and Sunday papers that published literature, stories, essays, things like that, which is very rare now, not many do, with the exceptions of perhaps the Hindu and the Deccan Herald and a couple of others. So I wrote a lot for magazines and newspapers right through the 60s and the 70s. And a lot of what I did then is sort of come out in book forms in recent years, collections of stories. And fortunately for me in my old age is that publishing now has come of age in India, and books are selling better, not only mine but other writers. And so it's possible actually to live by one's writing, which was difficult then, back in those years, in the 1950s and 60s and 70s.